UFC President Dana White and Oscar De La Hoya used to like each other. You could even say they were friends. But these days...
I'm gonna take the calls that all these UFC fighters are calling me. I mean, there's 40, 50 UFC fighters who are calling me. I'm gonna take those calls.
Oscar De La Hoya is an idiot. He's a liar.
He's what we call a bully. You know, one of those guys that has to bully you to get his way. I'll beat the... Come on.
He was a bad boy in his day before he got his fake abs.
They're not fake abs. Like, you cannot get fake abs, but it's called etching.
He's all jacked up on the yayo.
Needless to say, the two are not on the best terms, and over the past 8 years, we've heard everything from passive-aggressive digs to personal insults to possible threats. And in this video, I will go over their beef from the very beginning to where they are currently and explain why this grudge will likely never be resolved. It all began in the summer of 2017 during the build-up to the historic crossover boxing match between Floyd Money Mayweather and Conor McGregor. Now these days, MMA fighters trying their hand at boxing is nothing new. I mean, Jake Paul built a whole career off of it after all. But at the time, it was completely new territory, and even though on paper it seemed like Conor McGregor didn't have a chance in hell, he sold himself so well that everyone was excited.
He looks like a little breakdancer or something, a little 12-year-old breakdancer. What the f? He's 40! You're 40 years of age! Dress your age, carrying a school bag on stage. What are you doing with a school bag on stage? You can't even read.
I would put the press conferences leading up to this fight against any pro wrestling event in history. They were absolutely insane. But there was nobody more excited about what was going on than Dana White, so much so that at points I was convinced that he was going to give himself a heart attack.
The reigning, defending, 155-pound champion of the UFC, the notorious Conor McGregor!
The man was on cloud 9. He was straight up giddy, so while some people had their things to say about this being a freak show fight, it didn't really bother him much. But it was a complete shock when a person that he considered to be a friend in Oscar De La Hoya came out and publicly trashed what they were doing.
You're gonna ask McGregor to go inside a boxing ring where he has no experience whatsoever. He's never laced up a glove. And this is no knock on the UFC. The UFC, I think, is amazing and it's great, but I have an opportunity here now today to put on the best fights like I'm doing with Canelo and Triple G and bring boxing back to its glory days. And then you have this, which I call a circus. I just don't think it's fair for the sport of boxing.
Listen, Oscar De La Hoya and I have had a good relationship for a long time. If you look throughout the past, including the Canelo Chavez fight, I've been very supportive of every event that he does, and I've always liked Oscar. Bob Arum and I don't get along. If Bob Arum and I had the two last fighters on earth, I wouldn't make a fight with that. But Oscar and I have always had a good relationship. I was just at the fight. He's talking about money grabs. Canelo Chavez, you know what I mean? You're going to put on a fight like that and then call McGregor Mayweather a money grab when you were trying to make that fight 4 months ago, right? It's crazy. I mean, what is this guy doing? What's his deal? That's what I said. I'm basically saying to him, what's up? Why would you say something like that? You know, instead, it makes it sound like he has no confidence whatsoever in Triple G versus Canelo, which I have come out and said publicly is a good fight, right? I like the fight. I'll watch the fight. You know, he seems completely insecure, and it's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. And talk about two-faced and contradicting, and the list goes on and on. Hating and just, I don't know, like he has no confidence in his fight.
If he's watching this right now, what do you say to him?
Oscar, what seriously, what the is going on with you? Are you nuts? Are you out of your mind? Have you lost your mind? What's going on?
And while Oscar framed his criticism as standing up for the sport of boxing, Dana's theory was that he simply felt threatened that his own event and Canelo versus Triple G taking place the following month would be overshadowed by Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather. And that's probably true. While the Canelo and Triple G fight was absolutely massive, that summer all anybody could talk about was Canelo and Floyd. And the fact that the biggest event that he was going to put on that year was only the second biggest in the eyes of most people was bad enough, but the fact that Floyd Mayweather was involved too probably drove him nuts. Oscar hates Floyd Mayweather, so much so that around this time he put out a letter stating all the reasons that he believes Floyd is bad for the sport of boxing.
No one ever dogged Oscar De La Hoya the way Floyd did. Every single press conference, he treated him like he was a and talked about him in his face. And Oscar De La Hoya, he wanted to respond, but to protect his image, he couldn't. And at the end of the day, being a good guy didn't help his. He still got his by the bad guy. The same guy who came up in your face, talked about you every kind of way possible, disrespected you in every way possible, and now that's the one thing that, believe me, that's the one thing that still burns with Oscar, is the fact that Floyd did that to him and he couldn't do nothing at the time because he wanted to be a bad boy. He wanted to be able to say, I'll f you up or I'll do this, but he couldn't.
But the most concrete evidence we have that Oscar did not care at all about the integrity of boxing when it came to Floyd versus Conor is the fact that after the fight was over, he himself tried to set up a boxing match with Conor, something that did not go unnoticed by Dana White.
I know I can take out Conor McGregor in 2 rounds. Wow. Wow. I'll come back for that fight.
It's not a disgrace to the sport if you fight him. Like, what do you...
But after the dust settled, everyone moved on and went their separate ways. Until Oscar decided to give MMA a shot the following year by putting on an event headlined by Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell. Now, the event itself seemed designed to get under Dana White's skin. Chuck Liddell was a personal friend of his who he had begged to retire years prior due to being on the receiving end of several brutal knockout losses, going as far as to put him on a 6-figure salary with the UFC until it was purchased by Endeavor in 2016. And Tito was exactly what Floyd Mayweather was to Oscar, a guy that Dana absolutely despised. And at one point, their hatred for one another was so high that, ironically enough, Dana was actually going to box him, even creating a show around it for Spike TV.
In a boxing match, I was going to fuck him up and make him look stupid.
And while that never came to fruition, the bad blood never left, and what Oscar was doing by teaming up with Tito seemed like an intentional response to Floyd versus Conor McGregor. And even more blatant was the fact that in order to promote their event, both Oscar and Tito would go around and tell anybody that would listen that they were going to pay these MMA fighters what they deserve, unlike Dana White and the UFC.
Fighters are just coming up to me and saying, look, we don't get paid enough. UFC just sold for $4 billion. You know, we're here struggling, trying to make ends meet. You know, I'm fighting for a world title fight where this fight does 1 million homes and I only get paid $50,000.
And being that fighter pay has always been a sensitive topic for Dana, probably because the criticism he tends to receive is usually valid, this proved to be the final straw.
First of all, it's one thing to sit around with your friends and lie. It's another thing to go on ESPN and lie. Let's start with this. I have paid Chuck Liddell more money not to fight over the last 7 years than he paid him for that actual fight with Tito Ortiz. He just said there, guys are coming up to me and saying they fought for a title fight, on shows that did 1 million buys, and I got $50,000. Flat out lie. So total athlete compensation for Oscar's event was $580,000, right? $450,000 of that went to Chuck and Tito, right? So then the rest of the card, you exclude the main event and the co-main event, the rest of his card made $95,000. Year to date, our fighters make $1.2 million on the undercard, okay? Nobody in the main event of 1 million pay-per-view buys is doing $50,000. This is about this idiot coming on this show and lying.
Right.
He's a liar. Oscar De La Hoya is an idiot. He's a liar, okay? And he didn't build Golden Boy. He came on ESPN.
That Schaefer built Golden Boy?
Yes, yeah. There's no brains behind the operation now. He didn't know anything about the fights. He went up and did a press conference. He didn't know any of the fighters' names. Not only did he not know them, he didn't even take the time to write them on a piece of paper and read them off the paper.
And Dana had a solid point in saying that Oscar didn't care at all about his MMA event. That much was obvious to anybody like myself that was crazy enough to sit through it. Not only was the main event a huge and sad disappointment, with Chuck Liddell barely being fit to walk, let alone fight, Oscar seemed to be in a perpetual state of glassy-eyed brain fog and borderline oblivious to whatever was going on around him, making it even more obvious that this was more of a petty revenge plot than a legitimate attempt to get into the sport of mixed martial arts.
We're gonna do I believe a 12 fight card with amateurs and obviously pros, but people are gonna be very happy. They're gonna be very pleased. I'm all about, at Golden Boy Promotions, I'm all about making the best fights happen. I've already hired matchmakers, MMA matchmakers, some of the best, and so we're putting this card together as we speak.
For the next couple of years, things seem to cool off with only the occasional jab thrown here and there.
A good friend of yours, Oscar De La Hoya, has announced he's coming out of retirement to box again. I just wondered if you had any...
Cocaine isn't cheap. It's expensive. Gotta make money.
Thanks, Dana.
Yep.
And Oscar even apologized and attempted to extend an olive branch.
No, actually, I want to fix things up with Dana.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, that's a nice reunion. Yeah.
What do you
nice
think
reunion.
about? Because I always wondered, you know, why you and Dana beef? Because I know Dana, he's a nice guy. You're a great guy.
Yeah, you know,
So-
I criticized the UFC a bit, and you know, I was wrong for it. But yeah, I would love to.
You're trying to patch things up with Dana. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I thought that what he said was sincere, and I believe it. I don't know if we'll ever be friends again, but I think what he said was sincere, and I appreciate it.
But eventually, and especially with Dana announcing that he's going into boxing, things between the two became adversarial once again. Oscar once again seemed to take issue with Dana working with and praising people that he didn't like Matchroom Boxing promoter Eddie Hearn and Canelo Alvarez, especially when he commented on things that pertain to him.
What I did love was the Nelk Boys interview with Canelo. First of all, let's start with this. How classy is Canelo? I mean, one of the classiest guys in the world. But what have I told all of you for years about him? Him being De La Hoya. And what did Canelo say?
I'm glad to go away from him. Every time he's in problems, he don't have any fighters left. Now Ryan Garcia, I think is in a problem with him. That's why nobody wants to be with him, because he's not loyal.
And it isn't just me.
Dana calling Canelo classy here seemed intentional and tongue-in-cheek, since around this time Canelo cursed Oscar out.
And he's a ass. That's what I say. He's
And as bad as his words in English were, what he said to Oscar in Spanish that night was on another level. Commenting on a situation where Oscar was apparently accused by his house staff of sticking his kitchen utensils inside of himself.
como también le roba la atención a la gente que hace las cosas para la cocina. Ya no saben si hacerlas como consoladores o como cazuelas o algo. Porque acá se las mete el muchacho.
Not something that you want to have out there if you're Oscar. Although in recent years, and especially after getting together with his girlfriend Holly Saunders, he seems to have taken his mask off completely, seemingly making the decision that it's easier to be a train wreck publicly than to keep apologizing and pretending that you're not. And most recently, that has come in the form of him making his Thursday clapback videos where he once again began to attack Dana White.
It's time for your favorite part of the week, the only segment in boxing that gives you the facts and makes you laugh. It's Clapback Thursdays. Alright, some of my frenemies had a really Fortunately for them, I'm here to unpack all the drama. Let's go.
Listen, I like Eddie Hearn very much. Eddie Hearn was at the Sphere fight. He came early before the fight started. I have a great relationship with him. I have a great relationship with the Warrens. Obviously, love Tom Loeffler and his matchmaking and what he does. Yeah, I would probably be working with a lot of people. I'm sure you can assume the people that I would not be working with. I don't think you have to be that one out, but yeah, I like Eddie Hearn a lot and would love to work with Eddie Hearn.
Oh my gosh, Dana, you don't want to work with me? I guess I won't be invited to your circle jerk with Eddie. Bruh. You realize you will have to pay boxers real money if you want to be an hour sport, right? You called the godfather of promoters, Bob Arum, a and a piece of in a press conference last week. Way to start off your Neanderthal path into the world of boxing.
At the end of the day, it is my opinion that these two will never be on good terms again, because at their core they have two different mentalities that they live their lives by. Dana, being the sociable guy that he is, never lets business get in the way of friendship, while Oscar doesn't seem to value friendship at all and separates it from business as if it were a fight, taking the approach of we can be cool outside of this, but if we're in competition in any way, shape, or form, I'm going to do everything in my power to crush you and make your life miserable, and it's not a big deal because it's just business. And every time he falls out with somebody, it seems to follow a similar pattern. He does something selfish and underhanded and then acts surprised when the other party resents him for it. It seems that even if you're with Oscar, if there's a chance for him to profit by being against you, he'll take it and not even see it as a big deal. But if you don't forgive him, or he feels slighted by something you did to him, he'll be petty and hold a grudge against you forever, like he does with Floyd Mayweather and Canelo Alvarez. And that's a quality that Dana White also possesses. He does not let things go, and there are countless countless people currently on this list forever. And that's the reason why this particular beef is everlasting. Thanks for watching the video. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And if you want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell next to it. And if you want to support my channel further by becoming a member and getting access to special privileges like highlighted comments and early access to videos, hit the join button if you're on desktop or Android, or the link in the description for iPhone users.
I think Oscar De La Hoya he's just a guy that's totally jealous of me. He's jealous of me. From the beginning of my career, he knew that I was faster, I was stronger. All around the world, all around the board, I was just better than him, period. Period. And he knew I was coming. He knew I was coming. And even to this day, he's jealous of me. He hasn't made the money that I made. He only has one fighter at Golden Boy. Me and Al Heyman has totally took over boxing. We have all the fighters. We have the biggest companies, and he's very upset. Jealous. I mean, jealousy comes with the territory. And it's a part of life.